I'm actually a proponent for the complete abandonment of aid from Europe, because then Africa would stand up. We have a joke, Jimmy. We always say that every time Africa tries to stand up, the West pulls a chair labeled aid and says, oh, please sit down. So for us, we need to get rid of this chair and stand up.
So let me just ask you about this real quick. USAID, so Elon Musk and Doge went through USAID and they've gutted it, right? Which a lot of it is good, but there are some negative consequences to it. USAID cut rips through the African healthcare systems. The sudden dismantling of USAID, the country's main foreign development arm, is unraveling healthcare systems across Africa that were built from a complicated web of national health ministries, the private sector, nonprofits, and foreign aid. As the effects of the cuts compound, the resulting damage and deaths are unlikely to end anytime soon. Malaria cases will peak around the end of the rainy season, while threatened American cuts to global vaccine funding would likely be felt later in the year. In the meantime, the ripple effects continue to spread. Alongside laid-off workers, malnutrition clinics have shuttered doors in Nigeria. So can you talk about the effects of the USAID cuts?
Yes, of course. What you have read out now is correct. But again, the picture is much more multi-layered and complicated. I have always campaigned against aid from the US and the West for a very simple reason. It destroys local industries, and it's actually planned and structured in a way to prevent Africa from building its own manufacturing capabilities, because the West wants Africa to remain a supplier of raw materials. So most of the aid that comes from the US and from Europe replaces the potential for African workers, African small businesses to actually make something inside the continent. Another thing is the aid masquerades the robbery that takes place. So
Right.
I will give you an example, actually a very concrete study that was done in the year 2016 exactly, and updated later in 2019 by a group of British universities in which they calculated that 140 billion US dollars are extracted from Africa in the form of raw material, and less than 10 billion is given in aid. And of course, then you have to think of the debt of the IMF and the World Bank, and how the West relates all of this together and conditions African countries. If they want aid, they must take loans as well. And then, of course, their whole economy is connected to paying debt back, the services, the financial centers in the West. And it's basically a vicious circle of dependency, of hegemony, of enslavement. And the USAID is part of that. Yes, it does help to some extent when facing diseases, illnesses, when helping some particular small causes, local causes here and there. But in general, the general effect is very bad for Africa. And I'm actually a proponent for the complete abandonment of aid from Europe, because then Africa would stand up. We have a joke, Jimmy. We always say that every time Africa tries to stand up, the West pulls a chair labeled aid and says, oh, please sit down. So for us, we need to get rid of this chair and stand up.
So that's what, when people were saying in the United States, it was in the media that, oh, we're really hurting people in Africa with these USAID cuts. And I would have to remind people, this comes with a lot of strings attached. The reason we're not giving aid to Africa because we give a shit about their people. We're doing that so we can control them and their economy and continue to extract natural resources. There's big strings that come along with aid, especially when you talk about, so if they take the aid, they have to take loans. And of course, we all know, if you read the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, that the reason why the IMF gives loans to countries isn't to actually help them. It's to give them loans they can never pay back. So then they have to sign over their public works to a private corporation, and so then they become complex. A neoliberal wet dream, and that's what the IMF is there to do, not actually help countries, but to actually to help destroy them so that they can be exploited and for Western corporate hegemony. That's what. So we should. So when you see a headline like this, USAID rips through African healthcare system, you're saying what we need to do is create our own healthcare systems and get rid of the aid from the West.
Jimmy, if we just have fair trade with the West, if we sell our raw materials for fair prices, that's it, fair prices, we will be able to pay for infrastructure, health, education, the economy. Our problem is not with aid, is with the robbery of our resources, continuing for decades now. So that's why my fight as an African is for Africa to have economic sovereignty. That's what we are lacking, economic sovereignty over our wealth. And then we will be able to have our own organic national African development that will include health, education, transport, women, children, all humanitarian issues.
Okay. Moussa, Ibrahim, I really appreciate you coming on. You're always filled with great information about what's happening in Africa. We wish you best luck.
Thank you, Jim.
And I look forward to, Africa becoming independent of the need for USAID or any kind of control from the West. Good luck.
Thank you, Jimmy. We keep the fight. Thank you.
Okay. Come see us on tour. We're going to be in Bakersfield, San Jose, California, Buffalo, New York, Toledo, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Glasgow, Manchester, Belfast, Dublin, Liverpool, Birmingham, and London. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.